CBS News 24/7 also watching closely something happening at the U.S. Supreme Court as we speak. Justices in session hearing arguments in a Tennessee case that bans gender-affirming care for minors. Now, that law prohibits puberty blockers and hormone treatments in an effort to regulate the lives of transgender people, especially young people. CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford joins us live. Jan, there's history being made here. Is this case seen as having major national consequences?
You know, Reed, I think you're right on both counts. This is, first of all, an historic case. It's the biggest case of the term. There's an enormous crowd gathered here. We've kind of got competing rallies. People camped out for days to try to get a seat inside the courtroom. And yes, it has huge national implications. Laws in 26 states potentially are at issue that ban or restrict this kind of sex transition treatment for minors like the state of Tennessee does. It also represented the first time that a trans attorney has argued before the Supreme Court. Chase Strangio, representing the ACLU, appeared before the justices today to argue against these state bans on trans-identified medical treatments. So, at any rate, big day, like you said, and the justices spent over 2 hours grappling with the complicated issues in this case. Bottom line, though, Reed, I think they are really resistant to arguments that lower court got it wrong. Remember, a lower court ruled that these bans were permissible, citing that essentially some of the evidence and the research was so unclear. These are novel treatments done recently in the last 5 to 10 years, that states were within their powers of regulating medicine to restrict it. That's what the Biden administration argued against today, and Mr. Strangio for the ACLU. And I believe, based on the arguments and the questions, they had a pretty hard road ahead of them. There were at least 5 justices who seemed very skeptical of those arguments, very concerned about expanding the court's power in some of these cases, because as the Chief Justice pointed out, as Justice Brett Kavanaugh pointed out, this is kind of unclear, and maybe this is best left to the legislative process. So I think right now it looks like these laws in 26 states restricting this kind of treatment are likely to stand.
And Jan, let's talk about this, because we're talking about a Tennessee case, but other states are involved too. What can you tell us about the involvement of other states before we let you go? We know you have a busy day getting ready for nightly news.
No, and it's great to talk to you because we literally just got out of the courtroom, so you're getting it first, Reed. But there's 26 states that ban or restrict this kind of care, and then reflecting the deep divisions in this country, another 14 states specifically allow it. So this case wouldn't affect those. It still would remain the law in those states where children could still get this kind of treatment. But it would, if the court upholds this Tennessee law banning the care, that would mean that the laws in the 25 other states also would still remain on the books. And that, of course, is going to affect potentially hundreds of thousands of children who are identifying as trans. So obviously, these are very difficult issues, and the court really grappled with that. And again, it seems like what a majority of the justices right now are inclined to do based on their questions, and I have to say a caveat, Reed, they can always surprise you,
sure.
But based on their questions, it appears they believe that this is something right now that's best left to the states to decide. Now, why does that sound familiar? That's exactly what the court ruled when it overturned Roe versus Wade, a landmark case that it said was never in the Constitution, and that issue of abortion was best left to the states and the state legislatures and the people's representatives to decide. I think it is highly unlikely that a court that overturned Roe versus Wade and sent that issue of abortion back to the states is likely here to say states on this issue of transgender medical care for children cannot make those decisions for themselves. Reed?
Well, and then looking forward to potentiality where marriage equality is concerned. Jan Crawford, there are many things that you and I could be talking about, but I know you're having a very busy day there. We appreciate. Go ahead.
And I don't think that's an issue. I don't think that's an issue. The one other thing I would point out, the court looks to be looking at this very narrowly. And even if Tennessee wins in this case, Justice Barrett, a conservative, for example, who voted to overturn Roe versus Wade, said there are other issues that the trans parents could raise in other lawsuits, saying parental rights are at stake, that they should be able to have the choice, make the choices for their children's health care. care. So I think the decision would be very narrow. I don't believe, and the opinion, the argument itself didn't have that kind of soaring rhetoric. This is going to be narrowly decided.
Jan Crawford, thank you so much. You have my thanks on television and also in a
Thanks,
direct
Reed.
message in your Instagram account. We appreciate it.